Hi, and welcome to Sidewalk Talk. I'm Steve Fortunato, founder of Shovel the Sidewalk. We're a marketing firm in Buffalo, New York, and we help small businesses build their brand and tell their story through advertising. We utilize authentic storytelling, and that's what led us to this podcast, which is called Sidewalk Talk. And we find Western New Yorkers that are thought leaders, and we help them tell their story, and hopefully it can help out others throughout Western New York. And today we have Blake LeMoi. Blake is a unique story, and there's a lot to cover. But how we met was actually through LinkedIn. And so I do want to talk about LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn and how it can help people grow their personal brand and their business. But you are with Alcott HR. Let's start with you're not originally from here. You're from Seattle,
right? So
what are you doing here in Buffalo?
Well, family brought me back to the Western New York region. I had the opportunity to leave my hometown of Seattle in my early career, and went to Albion, New York, right between Rochester and Buffalo, and bring 300 jobs with a bank called Washington Mutual. So I came from 01 to 06.
So because of the HR influence that you have and the HR background, you worked with Washington Mutual.
Yeah,
they needed to hire a bunch of people, and you ran that shop.
Yeah, so we did regulatory training, retail banking training, and I helped with the adult learning and workforce development with the transition of the call center.
What did you discover about the workforce here versus, I know you've also been in San Antonio and out in Seattle. What's the difference?
The biggest difference, I guess, with the a rural community, urban or inner city, is really a little mix of education, great work ethic. I mean, I had 3 to 5 generations of families working for me in the call centers in Albion, which was definitely different. To have, grandmother and mother and son, and, that was probably the most unique thing that I've ever experienced, and is the only thing that I've seen in Western New York. But the work ethic was great. I mean, the people, the community, I mean, that was, I think, the differentiator as far as the strength of, the Western New York community.
As you know, and I've only known you, we connected through LinkedIn, we went and had a coffee together, and that's about it, but we really connected on a lot of our beliefs and our passions of storytelling and helping others and authenticity and building your personal brand. But I think Western New York businesses, just like businesses around the country right now, are still saying, they all say the number one problem for everybody seems to be the same thing. I need help with the workforce, right? They're all struggling to find employees. The labor market right now is it's the all-time low for any of us in our lifetimes. And I do hear this. We have a hard-working workforce. I have clients around the country, and in the South it's a little bit different. It's really interesting. It's like I have to push my clients a little bit because it's like we're always on the go here, and they're a little bit more relaxed. So what can we do? How can businesses improve their relationships with, or how can they build their workforce properly?
So seeing different parts of America and seeing the challenges, it's a common problem. This is a problem West Coast, South, East Coast. The differentiator and what I've seen with the companies that aren't having a challenge, say our big West Coast companies, there's no shortage of people to work for Amazon or Starbucks. These brands and the way they tell their stories and the way they connect with both their employee experience and then connect that employee experience with the customer experience, that's, I think, the biggest differentiator, and how the world of work has changed. That is ever more important. And I think as companies have evolved, some of the companies haven't quite acknowledged the connection in brand, transparency, customer and employee experience, and why that matters, because I just sell a product and let's just sell more of this product. But the reason why I'm a T-Mobile customer is because of the experience. The reason why I'm a Starbucks drinker is because of their stories and the experience. The reason why I'm an Android guy or a Microsoft guy is because of the experience. You know, I love Apple and I'm not an Apple user, but I'm a stockholder of Apple because they believe in that experience. You look at some of these companies that have been around only for the last 20 or 30 years, they're now top. You know, from like the 80s to the 90s, only a handful of companies got shifted out of that Fortune 1000. And then from, you know, the 90s to now, that almost flipped upside down. You know, you look at the traditional companies like GM or Sears, Toys R Us, and then you look at these newer ones like Amazon and Starbucks, and they're now top of the top only in 20 years, where the other companies, it took several hundred.
It's a loaded answer. But you just gave me a loaded answer, so we have a lot to cover. Near and dear to me is what you mentioned, the brand, the employer brand.
Yeah.
And to me, and I know we connected on this, off air, but employer brand it's not just for the Amazons and the Nikes. It's
for everyone.
It's small businesses. They have an employer brand.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it's whether you decide to make it relevant,
yeah.
and how you're going to connect with not only candidates that would fit your company, but also connect with your number one brand ambassadors, exactly. Which would be your own employees.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and I just feel like, some are getting it, but it is seriously an afterthought right now.
It's an afterthought, and the ones that it's not an afterthought are the ones winning. I shared this story with you when we were drinking coffee. I was proud to wear the brands. You know, I didn't take my T-shirt off. I didn't take my badge off as I was going through a grocery store. Look at, Wegmans here locally. They're consistently ranked number 3 top. And there's a reason why. They acknowledge the employee and the customer experience through brand and storytelling, and they measure it as well. So it's not I have a good brand. It's show me how you have a good brand, and show me how you're measuring the employee, the customer experience, and connecting that. And I think that's really where, whether you're a 1 employee crew, a 3 employee crew, or a 300 or a 300,000, that is where the world is going, and people are going to transact with the brands that have a connection to them.
Is it really it's semantics here, and I know you agree with me. We say it's connecting with the brand, the employer brand in this situation.
Yes.
But people don't connect with companies, they don't connect with the brand. they do, but really who they're connecting with are the people behind it.
Yes, sir.
People connect with people, human to human.
Right.
So it's in this situation, like for recruitment, I want to connect with employees that work there. I want to understand them as human beings, right?
Yeah.
And that's that employer brand. That's the storytelling that people connect with.
Right. I read a recent Forbes article that's talking about the evolution of the new CEO. And it's about the CEO that has X hundreds of thousands or millions of Twitter followers. It's the T-Mobile CEO, it's the Jeff Bezos, it's the Elon Musks. Like, those are the ones, whether they start another company or not. So the way that you connect with the brand is through the people. Silly things like a website with bios and storytelling, and connecting with LinkedIn and all of our social media. And there's now a human factor in business that has been accelerated, I think, in the last 5 to maybe 10 years.
Great point about it. So when I say people don't connect with a CEO, it's like when you think of the CEO, you think of, the suit, the tie,
Right.
kind of like what I am right now. But, but you think of, I really don't know that person.
Right.
I know that's a CEO, it's not a person.
Right.
And the Elon Musk of the world, whether you like him or don't like him, he's a CEO, but you don't think of him as a CEO. You think of him as the brand, as a person.
As a person.
And that's who you're going to, oh, cool, I get to work with that company who's led by that guy.
Right.
That's pretty cool, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was joking. There was something coming out where Elon Musk is coming to the Tesla plant here in Buffalo, and they're hiring 400 people. And I said, if Elon Musk had an office in Buffalo and he was there on a daily basis, I would sweep floors at that place to be there.
What about like a Warren Buffett? I mean, he's got himself a brand. I don't know if he did it on purpose. He's been very successful at what he's done. But I know, when he doesn't always tell the world, but sometimes he comes and visits Geico, and they're all over him.
Yes.
People want to work for someone like him.
Question if he did it intentionally or not, but he embraced it. He is a personal brand. Another person that I follow, people look at those wins with Berkshire Hathaway and Geico and everything that he's investing. Him and Bill Gates have had conversations where Bill Gates went to Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett turned him down because he didn't understand computers. And he doesn't regret that he didn't. But Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are best friends. They connected, and they connected on a personal level, even though it wasn't a good business transaction. And he looks back and he's like, yeah, I probably could have made a whole lot of money investing, being one of those first people that invested in Microsoft. And going into the technology stories, and there's documentaries about this, when Steve Jobs ran out of Apple, and then created this magical, beautiful thing called Pixar. When Apple was tanking, a personal brand, a personal connection, he was asked to come back to Apple, and who infused him with a whole bunch of investment capital? Mr. Bill Gates and Microsoft. He took an exit plan in a couple of years. He sold it off. He could have kept that and been 20 times richer through Microsoft, but he used that for a purpose. He helped a competitor. And that's the difference nowadays, is if you look at these root stories, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, Microsoft and Apple, you would think that those would be going head to head, and sometimes they did, but they were still taking care of each other because they had a personal brand together, and they had a mission to lift up the way we do business now.
And I feel what you just described also describes you and your mission.
Yeah.
You've talked to me quite a bit about, well, I really think this is really cool what you guys are doing with this podcast, because we're just trying to help people tell their story. We're trying to help connect people, because if people get connected, we all win.
Yes.
If something you say in this podcast helps one person say, oh, that was a bad move by him, or that was a good move by him, and they learn from that, that's great. That's only going to help our community, right? Yeah. So, but that's what you're all about, and you think that's the direction all business will go, whether all successful business will go. What are you doing? I mean, what are you doing in Buffalo to try to get, or Western New York, to try to get companies to work together? I see it a lot in marketing. I see a lot of us all working together on special projects, or saying, hey, you're really good at this particular part of the business. Why don't you work with this particular client? Right. I want to refer people all the time. We can do these things, but these guys are better at that, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, is don't be an expert at everything. When I started my consulting firm, it was a need. And it was out of my computer expertise, and I was helping build websites, and it really evolved into helping people with my Fortune 500 experience on building brands and connecting brands, and it evolved. I don't build the websites. I have people that build the websites, and here's the person, here's his name. I don't hide behind a contract and try to, and I think when I came to Buffalo, I've been here since May, Techstars has been here. I've been trying to just connect with some great people, and I think that's been the most rewarding part is meeting people like yourself, meeting all these other community leaders and people that aren't, they're not okay with the status quo. We've grown, we've made some changes. The pace of change needs to accelerate, and we need more people that have experience from the outside that are coming in, and I think that's a big differentiator. And the thing that I want to bring to this region is there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things individually, and we need to break down those silos. And even if our groups are doing two of the same things in two of the same areas, we need to work together, because there's areas that I grew up in that are half the footprint of Erie County. And one thing that everyone can agree on here is the Niagara Falls, the Buffalo, the Rochesters. There's more 501(c)(3)s here per capita than almost any other state. Like, we have a lot of people doing a lot of things individually that need to come together, and that's why I love digital. That's why I love technology. That's what the power of this is to connect it all.
Let's talk about your company. So it's still alive because you had a booming consulting company when you were in San Antonio, and you know, you had to move out here. We're glad you're here, and I'm glad you're making a go of it. And you want to immediately, you're figuring out ways to connect people in our community, which is going to be better for everybody. But the name of your company, what is your name of your company?
It's 180.io.
What does 180. What does that mean?
So 180 degrees.io, input output.
Okay.
So if you look at the logo and it's got a forward swoop like a chart going up, which is what every business wants to do with a rocket, 180 degrees with good input, good output. And everything's digital, everything's technology. If it's not measured, it didn't happen. And we can go and read all the stories in Inc. and Forbes. Data is the new gold. And if your company isn't capturing, measuring, and utilizing that data, talk about traffic on websites or lost leads or, you know, attrition with people. If you don't understand what those numbers are, that is what's putting these businesses behind. We have the data to measure website traffic. We have the data to measure opportunity to close deal. We have the technology to where you can hire and track that employee life cycle and see with exit interviews and, you know, onboarding, why people are coming on board, why people are leaving. And you need to utilize that data to constantly improve yourself and be agile in today's workforce.
So the way you just described how businesses should use data is exactly on target. And I would say, I can't give you a percentage, but very few companies, one, are utilizing that data. And then the ones that are, I'm in the marketing world, right? And this is what drives me crazy. Is, well, it's a digital world. Yes, it is. So our marketing has to go into digital because it shows us the return on investment, right? And digital isn't the answer. You know, the brand is. There's going to be a digital world in 10 years that we don't comprehend yet.
Yes.
We'll comprehend it then, I hope. Right? 20 years, 30
It might be
years.
hologram.
Yeah,
You never know.
But it's still going to come down to the brand and having a story to tell.
People.
You leverage your digital assets. You leverage digital to help tell the story, and then you analyze the data from there. But when it comes to advertising ROI, I often hear, oh, well, that was great. We did a Facebook campaign and whatever. We got a lot of conversions. The conversion rate was fantastic. Was it because of the Facebook campaign? Or was it because, I don't know, you've been building the brand for the last 5 years, you've built your story, you've had multiple touch points, and then we utilized a Facebook advertising campaign to help build that story, and that was the last touch point. I don't know. Was it because a neighbor told somebody about this product or service, and then they happen to be on Facebook and say, I don't know, I have a connection with that particular company and I'm going to respond. I don't know. I mean, what bothers me is that a lot take what you just said, which is so on target, and say, see, this is how we're going to measure results now, is how many conversions we have, and that's not it. That's not the standalone data.
No.
You have to recognize there's a bigger picture.
It's kind of like in the medical industry when you triage someone and you look at their pulse and those are indicators. We now have the ability through digital to create channels such as podcasts and videos and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and we now have the control to where 10 years ago and 20 years ago we were limited. We had radio, print, TV, and even before that we had only a handful of TV channels. Then we went into cable. So we now have the ability to get it out there. The way we measure things nowadays, there's data in the real estate world that says when a buyer is ready to buy or sell a house, they need to have an interaction with that brand anywhere between 15 to 21 times. Top of mind marketing. You see a little yellow ghost, what do you think about? You see a little green mermaid, what do you think about? You see, the red Coca-Cola font or the red Disney font that's in your name. You don't see your name, you see those brands because those are so great at top of mind, and the barriers of entry now are a lot easier. But the measurements, I tell people when I build websites or social media, those are just building traffics full of freeways. But are you putting the right exits to the right people? And that's where sales and marketing now are connecting through data. Great creative is very important, but look at the difference between, say, a Craigslist website and an eBay website. They're both selling, but eBay put millions of dollars into creative and measurements and analytics, and they're different target markets. So, Mercedes and BMW, they spend pennies on the dollars to market here in the U.S. because their brand is so strong that once you buy a Mercedes or a BMW, you become a loyal buyer. But Ford and Chevy are out there spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to acquire. So that goes back into your brand, and that goes back into that experience, because once you deepen that experience, you ask any BMW owner, they're not going to buy a Ford.
How is that scalable? I don't know if that's the right term, but how does that equate? See, to me, what you're talking about is it's the same with small businesses. A lot of people will say, well, that's BMW. I mean, I'm not BMW.
Exactly. I hear that all the time. I'm not Starbucks or
Yeah.
Amazon.
Right. So how do you take that and take those great examples and explain it to a small business that's the same for you?
So let's go down to small business, and I was listening to NPR yesterday, and they were talking about the re-evolution of bookstores. With the closures of Barnes and Noble and all these other bookstores that are having a hard time, there's new opportunities for the local small one employee bookstore owner to deepen that relationship, and they're doing things like having conversations and book readings and increasing the experience through they're even serving coffee and alcohol in some of these because people are hungry for experiences. They're not hungry for transactional anymore. I can buy the same book on Amazon, but if I go to my local bookstore and they recommend something to me and I have a cup of coffee and I have a stimulating conversation, I'll pay retail instead of paying a couple dollars cheaper for Amazon. But these small businesses need to understand that relationship and that experience is all communicated through their brand, through their people, and they need to understand who that target market is and what's important to them, because it's different. It's different here.
It's human, though.
Yeah,
it's human. That's what
Tim
it's all
Hortons is Western New York in Canada. Starbucks is the West Coast. I know, and we got Spot Coffee here too. These are regional differentiators, but it's still the same experience. So, people need to deepen and understand that relationship and those experiences through data, through technology, through social media and marketing, and analyze that data and figure out where your strategic value consumer is and how to deepen that relationships. Banks realize that you open a checking and savings account, you're more likely to leave. But you open a checking, a savings, a CD, a mortgage, So on the business level, you need to constantly look at deepening that relationship just as much as you're trying to hunt for a new customer. And I think that's another thing that a lot of companies are missing out on, is they're trying to hunt for new customers instead of deepen the relationship with their existing customer. They're your word of mouth.
You're listening to Sidewalk Talk, a podcast in which we connect thought leaders in Western New York to the community and help tell their story through authenticity. Just a programming note, Jamie, we're going to go past our allotted time, so you're going to have to give me a heads up, and we'll make the switch. We'll just slow down for a minute in a couple minutes. So today we're talking with Blake LeMoi. He works here locally in Western New York with Alcott HR. He does a lot of things. The company that he also has is 180.io, right? Okay. So, but what I always find interesting in talking, your focus on everything ends up being, well, in the end result would be sales.
Yes.
Because without
sales solves all problems,
right? But it's a lot of people say, well, we just need more sales. Right? Yeah. So yeah, this guy gets it. He's all about sales. Well, what your passion is, well, it's not just saying we want to. How do you get to that? What your philosophy behind getting to sales? It's multifaceted.
So the biggest underlying factor is the people. The people that are in your operations, the people that are your frontline, people that are your executives. People, no matter how automated, no matter how AI we go, there will always be people on the back end, whether it's 1 or 100 people, and that's your differentiator. And that's what a lot of great brands have understood. And they reward and they compensate and they incentivize to make sure those people stay.
We were talking before we went on air about the workforce, the current. Here's what we compared it to. People, a lot of times in Buffalo, we're like, well, we're never going to have to, we're 10, 15 years away from, we're not really losing employees or potential employees out to the West Coast or Silicon Valley. It's just not we don't have to worry about that. We got to worry about what's here. It is. But we do have to worry about that because those companies are now coming here because there's such a thing as a remote workforce. Can you expand on remote workforce and why we need to be more aware of that as employers?
So the world of work is changing. We've all heard of work-life balance and 410s and what's going on in Europe, and the way companies are going to attract and retain top talent and young talent and new talent is balancing that performance and giving them as much that they can. We have technology with VPNs. We have the ability to log in. Companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Apple, it doesn't matter what city you live in. If you're qualified and if you can do the job, they will pay you the West Coast salary in Buffalo. They will pay you the West Coast salary in Louisiana. It doesn't matter anymore.
But you know that for a fact because you've met people locally that are working for some of these big companies, and they work right out of their home, and they're paid pretty well.
Yeah, I actually, when I moved out here in 2001, I was on a West Coast salary making about 20 to 30% more than my coworkers. And when I went down to Texas, they were actually starting people at $9 an hour when almost 9 years previously in Seattle, they were starting at $12 to $14 an hour. So there are differences, and we can talk about cost of living and all that, but it doesn't matter anymore. And the way we're going to fill that workforce gap and the way we're going to retain people is we need to understand that we're in a national market now. And a lot of these companies, it doesn't matter what city you work in. If you have the skills, you can work in Buffalo and work in New York City, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, and that gate is about to be unleashed. and some of these big companies, because they are having such a hard time with talent acquisition. They have now done so much research on how to manage their workforce remotely that it's going to be almost 100%.
I want to talk about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's a real powerful tool. And talk about it's a digital world, right? Doesn't take away the human-to-human interaction. Right. It's like when people talk about, well, I'm a B2B business, it's still human-to-human, right? Whether B2C or B2B. You have leveraged it. I know you have more than 20,000 followers. Yeah. I don't know, what advice do you have for anybody out there? Why should people be using LinkedIn as a tool?
So the age of the resume, although it's very important, has evolved. And your personal brand and communicating that personal brand through a website, a portfolio, or LinkedIn, which is a very easy thing, just like Facebook, to throw up a portfolio, put out your articles, share your articles, comment on the people that you like. We have a way now of connecting. In fact, when I was with ADP in San Antonio, the way I got the job was through all of my thought leadership on LinkedIn. A recruiter from California reached out and said, hey, it looks like you qualify for this job. Would you like to apply?
Had you guys connected, and so he was seeing your posts on his news feed?
So recruiters have another feature in LinkedIn, so they're specifically looking out for. So they were seeking people in the area with certain skill sets or what have you, but we weren't connected. They were actively seeking, and that's another thing that a lot of these big companies are doing, is they're utilizing LinkedIn. So putting your resume out there, which my resume is out there, putting my personal brand, putting all of the stuff that you believe in and what you connect with, that is what's going to be your resume on steroids, I guess you would say nowadays.
Here's the pushback I'm getting from some of our clients that we're encouraging to push more content out on LinkedIn through their personal brand, not the company brand. Yes. And we can get to that in a second. But what I am hearing, which I get because I went through it, when Jamie from Shovel the Sidewalk was pushing me, he's like, you have a lot of thoughts. We should really let the world know about it and share your thoughts, which is then it led to this podcast too, because let everybody share their thoughts. But it's the people that are not using LinkedIn the right way, that are messaging you and selling you. Yeah, it's the modern day version of cold calls.
It is.
It's, hey, I've got this, and they're making a mistake, number one, and you can figure that out in a second. I would assume they don't get much business out of that, but it's actually keeping people from wanting to get more involved and connect with people on LinkedIn. So what do you? It's like when people, I don't want to get on Facebook because I don't want to hear my high school. I didn't like them in high school, but I don't like them now. You know, but it's almost the same kind of thought process.
It is. It's like the product curve. I mean, how many people held on to their flip phones, and we won't mention that flip phones are back. But it's that evolution of the product cycle. Is you couldn't refuse to have a phone. You back in the day, it was Yellow Pages. You'd had to advertise in Yellow Pages, and then in the late '90s, it was you got to have a static website. You just got to have a website. Well, now the way to get your message out there is through engaging content, and LinkedIn is one of the most highly trafficked websites. So I get it. It can be disruptive. We're in a very disruptive world. We're in a very distractive world. So there are techniques with, short sound bites and, grab attention kind of thing. But, it's also easy to delete, and it's also easy to block. I actually got someone, and I get these almost on a weekly basis, sometimes 2 or 3, that some U.S. person that doesn't sound like or speak like they're from the U.S. is selling me website development for $20 to $25 an hour. And it's almost the same script and the same websites, and I delete them now. You can't stop people from knocking on your door if there's a no soliciting sign. You can't stop people from calling you on the phone, even if you're on the do not call list. You can't stop people from messaging you on LinkedIn or what have you. But that's where everyone is. We can connect with the world. So you just got to feed through the distractions, I think. And utilize it for good. I got 20,000 plus followers, and I get several hundred to several thousand views. And the way I've succeeded is bringing my personal brand and, my family, my business, and all of that stuff, and connecting that through digital and storytelling.
So it's your advice for, I literally had a client just email me yesterday and say, what is the etiquette? Should I delete them? Do I respond to them? Because some of them, maybe they have good intentions and they really believe they have a product to sell that could help you, but it's just they're going about it the wrong way. They're not connecting. It's like, hey, I've got a product. There's no connection. He doesn't want to deal with it. And my answer was, you know what? It's a little bit labor intensive, but I feel like over time you get less and less of those, or I don't know why. Or those people kind of go away. It seems like when you make that connection, you know that there's a problem when they connect with you and they start messaging you right away.
Yeah.
But what is it? I didn't feel like I gave them a good answer. I don't block those people. I mean, I know there's certain people that you want to block, just ignore it, or, I mean, if someone calls on me and they're trying to do their job, I try not to ignore them.
Right.
I try to do the right thing. But when you're getting 100 of them, what do you do? I mean, what is the right? I don't know what the answer is.
I'm sure the right answer is different for everyone. As an example, I actually messaged this gentleman that was, the same script. I do web development, $20 an hour, said he was from San Francisco. And I said, hey, I don't want to be rude, but I get 2 to 3 of these weekly, and it's very distracting. So if you want to be one of my approved vendors, I would like to create a relationship with you. And I think that's the way sales has evolved. Whether it's cold calling, whether it's, direct mail, or now LinkedIn, which is just a new channel to be annoyed by. We all have our spam folders now and junk folders, and emails kind of gone on the wayside, and now it's going into LinkedIn and text messages and stuff. You need to, I think that's why brand is so important, and that's why this experience is so important, is we're in such a distractive world, and it gets overwhelming, and it's just hard. And for someone that's been a digital native and been in technology forward cities, to me it's another thing that just goes to my spam, and every once in a while I respond and say, hey, no thank you. But I think it's up to the way someone wants to handle it. We have the ability to block them if you want to, but that's not going to stop. We're in a world of distractions, and that's, I just think, the biggest challenge, and how we need to show how distractive our world is and how sales have been flipped upside down because of that.
Explain that in more detail. Because to me, cold calling, I don't know when it was popular, but it's, you know what I mean? But apparently it was. I don't know if, when someone cold calls on me, I'm angry.
It ruins their reputation.
I don't know you.
Yeah.
But yet doesn't mean they're bad people.
Right.
And I guess that point is the same way I feel about when someone messages me or cold calls me through LinkedIn. It's just human. It's just the same. I have the same reaction. But what do you mean sales has been turned upside down?
So look at the way we consume videos. We no longer go to a video store. Look at the way we consume groceries. We no longer have to go to a grocery store. You can do curbside pickup or now get it delivered. We no longer consume, and this is the best example, the car buying experience. I consulted with some dealerships back in Texas, and there's over 100 to 200 what's called micro moments in the buying experience. So they go from hundreds to tens to maybe 3 or 4, and a person will only go into about 1.5 dealerships before they buy a car. So no longer do buyers go to car lots, do test drives, utilize the salesperson as the thought leader. They consume that thought leadership in a different way through, car reviews and Edmunds and all these other, ways of seeing the car through a digital presence, and they make their buying decisions now in a different way. Think about how you bought your phone. Did you look at reviews? Did you compare? Or did you go to, the Apple store or the Microsoft store or Best Buy or whatever that has all of the brands? People consume things differently, how digitally native they are or aren't. So there are still a lot of people that are still experiencing it in the old-fashioned, tangible way. But the majority of people in the workforce are now millennials. They are digitally natives. They go through reviews and reputation and 5-star reviews and all of that. So the way people buy is all through those experiences and how well you're demoing your product online and doing your product demos, subscribe here and, download this demo or come watch this product review. I mean, there's people making money unboxing toys. There's kids making money as a full-time career unboxing toys because that toy company and that brand is sponsoring those because that's the new way that people are experiencing brands.
And people, I don't know if it's a millennial thing or not, but I think we're just done being advertised to.
Yes.
We want again, back to what we talked about before, we want the connection. We want to like the vision.
Yeah.
Right? Before we go ahead and buy. Or like the brand, or like the people behind it, and understand it.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to get back to LinkedIn because it's a sales tool. It really is when it's used properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is a way for people to understand your thinking and say, I like how that person thinks. If I'm ever in need of that particular service or if I know someone it is, I should connect those people too, right? It's
exactly.
that simple, isn't it?
It is that simple. LinkedIn is one of the most powerful B2B and business tool connectors I think out there. There's Sales Navigator, there's Recruiting Navigators, there's things that you can pay for that enhance it, have CRMs and ways of following, and I would love to show tips and tricks and ways that I've been very successful on there, and we could probably do hours of conversations on just how to utilize that one tool. But LinkedIn is the most powerful way, in my opinion, to connect the business community. And it lessens that barrier of entry. Say in our conversation, I saw one of your podcasts. I connected with you, said I really love what you're doing, and we went out and had coffee. What if I cold called you? It would have been completely different. Maybe we would have had the same conversation because we connected on a personal brand. But that's the differentiator, is it's a less disruptive barrier of entry. People can respond at their own convenience to a digital communication. People, I don't know about you, but I don't check my voicemails. So it's an evolution of the way we transact. And LinkedIn was bought by our friends at Microsoft for, I think a few billion or something like that for a reason. Those tools are connecting the world at a record pace.
Again, we consult with our clients and work and come up with marketing strategies. A lot of times I do see, I don't know how to put this right, so a lot of companies, they're not misled on purpose, but we're always worried about this SEO, search engine optimization, and I get it, right? And my philosophy is it's second to the brand. Brand is first. I'd rather people look up my company and Google my company name or my brand rather than my whatever business I'm in and me go up against 10 other people and I want to be number one. But I think it can happen organically. But I guess where I was going was I see a lot of these people say, well, what we got to do is we have this strategy, we have these 5 channels, these 5 social media platforms, and we're going to have content on all of those, and that will help our SEO, which is true, very true.
Very true.
But we're talking about small businesses. I mean, Coca-Cola has an entire team just for Facebook,
per
right?
channel.
So yeah, that's what I mean. And so on paper, it's brilliant. Of course, that's what you should do. But it's not realistic for small businesses to have content that people want to engage with on 5 different channels. Pick one.
Exactly.
And the other thing that's happening is that I'll see a lot of the B2Bs and they'll have this LinkedIn strategy from their company page. and there's no engagement. There's not, and it's a company.
Yeah, it's a company.
So
it's not the people.
It's different. Like Facebook, your brand page is one thing, and people tend to use their personal page as their personal page. But LinkedIn, the personal page is more important than the company page.
By far. You look at my 180 page, and it's only got like maybe 20 followers. You look at Alcott's page, and they have several thousand followers, but the engagement is through personal. I mean, you mentioned Facebook business is different than LinkedIn business, and I think that's the differentiator. Is being in media, you understand demographics, and you know the difference between advertising on this channel, this time because of demographics. And I think that's the biggest differentiator in small businesses, and that goes back into the data. Is who is your strategic value consumer, and what data are you relying on that? Don't tell me that's how you feel it is, and don't tell me how you think. Utilize your social media and your web traffic and all of that demographic that you have that can pinpoint age, sex, income, all these trigger events, and then take that with your point of sale systems. And when people swipe cards, that shows you what zip codes they're in. Take your loyalty programs and capture that demographics and compare the two. Because the people on the outside of the window that are liking and sharing aren't necessarily the ones that are in there actually swiping cards and buying. So that's, I think, where the small businesses get really confused. And, I hate to say it, but marketing agencies and creative people, that's the new used car salesman. Mm-hmm. Like, they're a dime a dozen. They're pretty faces and great coders, and we have to stick to our areas of expertise. My area of expertise is bringing that digital into a sales process. And there's great salespeople and there's great marketing people that I work with. And these small businesses, they get distracted by the next shiny thing that's like, oh, my friend does social media, or oh, my friend does websites. SEO. Mm-hmm. And you no longer load your website with keywords anymore. I can make your website number one on Google by having good Facebook reviews and good Google reviews and good engagement on social media, and have horrible keywords, even though that's the fundamental and still the foundation today is keywords. Header tags and all that jumbo and jargon, and it's so distracting. No one cares about how an internal combustion engine works. They turn the key, they go down the road. And that's where websites, we can go in the nitty-gritty on header tags and H1 and H2, and the fact that to index a Google page you need X amount of characters, and who cares? It's about engagement, and it's about connecting with those people. You can have a horrible Wix or Weebly or Squarespace website, and not knocking them because they serve their purpose and they're great. I've seen businesses be multi-million-dollar businesses on those cookie-cutter websites, as small businesses are doing exactly what you said. Oh, I talked to my expert and they need a WordPress website that's custom, and I need to be on 17 different channels, and it's distracting. And then that goes back to our previous conversation of, we're just in a world of massive distractions, and the experts are the ones that are, weeding that out. Doing what you're doing, and just a daily podcast or a daily video, and just bringing that word out there organically is going to work better than any SEO.
In the end, your advice then, I'll let you say it, but I think we're on the same page because we really want to help that small business owner, right? Yeah. The advice would be, just think about the end user, right? Think about who you're trying to connect with. Yeah. And because this is what Google wants you to do. This is what the platforms, the social media platforms want you to do. They want you to provide content that others actually want to consume. Yeah. And if you focus on that other stuff will take care of itself,
Everything else will come. Yeah. Inbound marketing instead of outbound marketing. You want to be exhibiting that thought leadership. Depending on your business, whether you're B2C, it's going to be more transactional, it's going to be more distractive. It's just the way it is. B2B is going to be more long-term relationship nurturing, lead scoring, re-nurturing, retargeting. But bottom line is you need to understand who your strategic value consumer is, who your high dollar is. I mean, we can go to marketing classes all day long and talk about cash cows and loss leaders and all that stuff. We have to analyze that, and we have to understand what it is. There's a reason why McDonald's put out a dollar menu, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they lose money every single time they sell a burger for $1. They know that that loss leader is going to bring in X amount of people that are going to buy a soda or pop or whatever we want to call it wherever we are, that brings a 200% margin. And
or poison.
Well,
right?
yeah, that's a whole nother, you talk about the ethics and the connections. I mean, those brands that were once leading brands are dying, where if you look at them in Europe, they're all organic. And they haven't adjusted. They're trying to do some old school distractive loss leader, and look at Wendy's and Burger King. They're copying. They're mimicking a failed process where they need to like turn it upside, and they're trying to do the veggie burgers and all this stuff. I get it. They're being different, and that's what we need to do. Is we need to deepen that relationship and that experience and say, customer, why do you shop with me? Why do you come to my store? And you need to duplicate that. And we have measurements with social media and analytics and loyalty programs and point of sale systems, and all that data is there for a reason. I mean, look at Google. They don't sell anything, and they're the most valuable company because they know where we are, what we do, what websites. That's how Facebook monetized before paid boosting. It's about that data, and that's the evolution, and it goes down to a small business, and it is very affordable because chances are you already have those tools. Google Analytics is free. You're probably already swiping credit cards. That has analytics on it. Don't get distracted by all the bells and whistles, by all the extra options. You can do this for free or very low, and just take some organic posts and tell some good stories and connect your people and tell your people stories and tell your customer stories and case studies and drive 5-star reviews. And you look at the small bakery that's doing that, and they got hundreds of 5-star reviews, and they're loving life and business is great. While you got the other bakery that doesn't understand digital and has a couple people that are running in and out, and the difference could be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit with the same type of company in the same block because they understand it.
All right, we are, so Blake LeMoi is his name. We can find out, why don't I just I'm going to spell your last name.
Okay.
LeMoi,
yep.
Right? LeMoi. So if you want to engage with Blake and hear more of his thoughts, he's got a lot of thoughts, he's got a lot of knowledge. I'll just tell people to go onto LinkedIn and look you up on LinkedIn. Blake LeMoi, LeMoi.
BlakeLeMoi.com. It actually reroutes to LinkedIn.
Does it?
Yeah.
All right. There's even more to learn there. So Blake LeMoi has been our guest on the longest Sidewalk Talk podcast we've had so far, right? All right, we went over our time a little bit, but that's okay. There are no rules. It's not like we have. Yeah. It has to be exactly whatever we want to do. So, Blake, thanks for being a guest. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate what you're trying to do for the West New York community and people involved, and hopefully we can help get your message out and connect more people.
Perfect.
That's it for this version of Sidewalk Talk. You can download all of our Sidewalk Talk podcasts on whatever podcast platform you choose, Apple, iTunes, Spotify. You can also watch any of our podcasts by visiting our website, shoveltosidewalk.com. Also, if you or someone you know wants to be a guest on our show because you have a story that needs to be shared, you can let us know by completing a simple form on our website. All right, thanks again for listening or watching and participating. I'm Steve Fortunato, and this has been Sidewalk Talk.